Welcome into Up in the Rafters, a podcast brought to you this basketball season by our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. Co-hosting this, I'm Taylor Vippolis, and this year I'm joined by national champion, most outstanding player of the Final Four, and a Carolina basketball legend, the ACC Network's Joel Berry. Joel, it's Thanksgiving week. We're at the point where we're getting these early season tournaments. How's everything going with you in the college basketball world?
Everything is good. Whenever these games are coming on during the daytime, it gives you an excuse to watch TV. So I'm in heaven right now.
These tournament games, those games during the day, they make the workday go a lot faster.
They really do, man. I love them. I get so excited to wake up the next day, and then I look at my phone. I kind of have to remind myself. I'm like, oh crap, I gotta get this game on, and I got the YouTube TV on my app, so it's perfect.
We have one game to talk about, and then we'll talk about UNC's early season tournament. Carolina has a home game against UC-Riverside. They win 77-52. First thing I want to ask you about that game, UNC wore blue jerseys at home. What did you think about that? Because it took me a while to get used to that.
Yeah, it was nice on their part, man. You know, UC-Riverside they're going through some tough times. I don't know how you don't have your jerseys ready for the season. I'm like, come on, man. Don't have your away jerseys, but you know, Carolina being Carolina, we were nice and we allowed them to wear the whites and wear the blues. But I love the blues though. They are fire.
Would that be your preference? Wear blues at home? Because then it's a lot of Carolina blue, and I kind of think it's a great color.
Yeah, I think so. I think they should start doing it more. I mean, it switches things up, kind of gives you a little football feel. It doesn't the football wear blue jerseys at home sometime or away when they're at home? I think that's change it up a little bit. It's 2023.
Yeah, and Carolina's leading scorer in the game against UC-Riverside, no surprise, Armando Bacot. The numbers, we didn't spend too much time talking about Armando Bacot in the last podcast because it's almost gotten to the point where you know what you're going to get with Armando. He's going to put up a double-double. He's going to put up these monster numbers. But the numbers that he is putting up, he holds the record at Carolina for most double-doubles and career rebounds. This game, he joins the top 10 scoring list for the Tar Heels. How do you kind of put into perspective what he's able to do on a night in and night out basis for this Tar Heel team?
It's pretty impressive, man. He's just a horse down there in the paint, and it's just really hard to stop him. I mean, he has the size. He knows how to maneuver his body and get into small spaces and just post up and be available. But what he is doing, man, it's just hats off to the work that you put in when no one's watching. And I think that's a testament to what he does. And you got to think, with all that's going on with NIL and just what's on his plate, man, you talk about being a true professional. That's being a true professional. You know, in our time, we just had basketball. You know, they have stuff off the court and all that going on. And I mean, he's in a business school. So when you talk about a guy that's just really striving for excellence, man, he's doing it on and off the court. And it's impressive. And people don't realize, man, when you go into the gym and you look up there, and you see all the greats up there, man, and you're breaking records and you're passing people on that list, man. It's a true testament to the work that's put in. And Armando is playing unbelievable. And I'm excited to see what the season has for him and if he can continue this, because I mean it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, there's sometimes too when I'm watching Bacot where he misses some shots around the rim and he's getting his rebound and trying to put it back up. And I'm like, man, if there's sometimes where he gets like 25 and 10, and I'm like, there's sometimes where I'm like, he should get 40 and like 15 with some of the shots he's getting. And it's such a good safety blanket for this North Carolina team to have somebody down there that's getting such a high percentage shot for their main offense. And I think that's something that they didn't do a great job at times last year, where he wins position down low, they don't get it to him, and you're big running the floor up and down, giving a lot of effort, and with how good he is, it's like if he's in position, you have to try to feed him the ball. But these early season games, it allows us to see more of a rotation where the North Carolina coaching staff can try different things out. I want to talk about some of the players in that rotation that are trying to crack it and get even more minutes. The first person I want to talk about, Jaylen Withers, because I don't remember where the report came from, but somebody had mentioned, it might have been like an Adam Lucas article, if I want to give the proper credit to it. But the consensus was that he was the guy who was going to be in the starting lineup, kind of gets banged up before the season. They make the switch to Wojcik. What have you kind of seen from Withers and the potential that he brings to this North Carolina team with his athleticism?
Yeah, and that's the word right there. The athleticism he brings is something that you bring off the bench. You have that energy coming off. You have that athleticism, and he has the switchability on the wing as well. And I think that allows them to be able to switch 1 through 4. I mean, I would even go to say that he can play the 5 sometimes if they really wanted to do some small ball and really get up and down the court. But I mean, with having Armando on the court is so effective. And you always want him to be able to stay on the court. But and I know Jalen Washington, which we'll get to and hit on, but he has stepped up here in this early season, especially in the last game. But Jaylen Withers just brings something that that Carolina can use, and just the athleticism, being able to switch. I mean, even at Louisville, one of his seasons, he was able to shoot the ball from the outside. He could dribble it. He can handle it. And also another factor that he brings too is being able to bring the ball up the court. If you have the ability to be able to get a rebound and not have to pass it, and you can advance it yourself, I think that makes this Carolina team a lot faster. So being able to have him get a rebound, go down and start the action right away just gives them a little bit of a different look than having Armando or somebody at the 4 who can initiate that. But man, I think he will, as the season goes along, I think you'll see him playing a lot more because of his energy and his athleticism that he brings.
And you saw that athleticism on display on what was, without question, the highlight play of this game. Withers starts it with a huge block. The way he blocks the ball, it looks violent.
It does. I mean, borderline disrespectful. And just staring at the dudes. I mean, it was 2 of them in one game. It's crazy.
But the play I'm talking about, Withers blocks it. RJ gets it. He pushes it, has the great bounce pass up the floor to Seth Trimble. Seth Trimble with the poster Sports Center top 10 play. What did you think of that play first?
Man, I've watched that. Like, how you sit on your phone and you just watch it and you watch it and you watch it, and like 5 minutes has passed. And you're like, man, I watched this 20 times. It was just that exciting. Just being able to see the block shot, as you said, that was so violent and so aggressive. And then you see them get out on the break. And I played with JP. I know the hops. The hops are insane, but JP was 6'5". Seth Trimble is only like 6'2". So to see a dude like that rise up off the floor, I mean, it's just spectacular. And that's what they want from him. They want him to be use that athleticism and use the strength that he has and his leverage that he plays with. And I just think, in a nutshell, that play was what Carolina wants to do. They want to be aggressive on the defensive end, and they want to translate that into offense as fast as they can. And that play, man, I think that play will be on the end of the season highlight, and I can keep that on rerun because I enjoy watching that.
Where do you see Seth Trimble's role on this Carolina team? Because we talked about Elliot Cadeau. We know Carolina has RJ Davis. Is there a spot for Seth Trimble and what he brings? Because I think his biggest strength is kind of like Jaylen Withers, where he's real switchable. He has the athleticism, and it feels like you can't have enough great athletes on your team.
Yeah, I think it'll be a situation where, as the season progresses, I think the coaching staff will have to find a way to utilize his strengths on the offensive end. Defensively, we know what he can bring. He's a pesky guard. He can pick you up 94 feet. He can get into you, and he has the athleticism to be able to take a bump and still jump up in the air and contest at a shot. I just look at it offensively. How can they use that athleticism and that quickness that he has to be able to be effective on that end? Because you don't want to have him on the court and treat it like a Rondo, treat him like a Rondo, and then now you have a fifth defender just sitting in the paint, not contesting. I know he did hit a couple of threes in the last game, but that's not something that's not his strong suit. But I feel like that will be the difference maker in him being able to get out on the court is how can they utilize, and I think it'll be a lot of like, catches in the 45 on the go, trying to get downhill as quick as possible. And just being able to use that, being able to go into some dribble handoffs. If someone is sagging off, like, hand off to RJ Davis, let him come off of a dribble handoff, things like that. I think they can be able to utilize him, but they have to give him time because on the defensive end and the energy that he brings and the type of energy that he brings off the bench, I think that's something that they need, especially when you get into a hard, grimy game where you need a little bit coming off the bench that's a little bit different than the starting five.
Yeah, and against UC-Riverside, Carolina had 4 scorers in double digits: Armando Bacot and Harrison Ingram from the starters, Seth Trimble with 11 points, and then the other person with double-digit points, you mentioned him earlier, Jaylen Washington, who's actually been Carolina's leading scorer off the bench with 8 points per game. What have you seen from Washington as he tries to make this next leap in his game?
Yeah, I just see something that's a little bit different. Gives you a different look than Armando. And what I love seeing is the minutes that Armando has been playing. He hasn't played over 30 minutes in either game or in the first 3 games. And Jaylen Washington has been able to get in and get some of those minutes and actually be productive, which is good and what they need. I think his come out game was the Virginia game last year when Armando went out and he came in, and I think everybody, myself, the fans, they got a chance. Even you got a chance to see a glimpse of what he can really do. And he was still coming back from injury, still trying to find himself, and now being able to take that next step, he will be able to step out on the perimeter, knock down a shot. I love his face-up game, being able to turn around and hit the mid-range, and just being able to make plays out of the post. If they bring a double team, he's already facing up, and the face up on double teams is the best thing that you can do because now you see the defenders coming over. So just his skill set at the 5, man, is something that's a little bit different than what Armando brings. And if a team is trying to scout, coming on the court, you'll have to change things up, and it forces team to make sure that they're on their P's and Q's, knowing that he's on the court and that it's a little bit different than having Armando on there. So I love what he's been doing here. 11 points in the last game, 2 for 2 from the 3-point line. That's what they'll need, especially when you talk about later down the road or these crazy games coming up that we're getting ready to touch on. They will need Armando Bacot to be able to have some time to be on the bench and get a breather, but not have a drop off.
Yeah, I thought that was a great point you made that I wanted to kind of follow up on. You look at the minutes in the UC-Riverside game. RJ Davis was the leader, 28 minutes. Harrison Ingram, 26. Armando Bacot, 25. Cormac Ryan, 22. Cadeau, 23. That's not something we've really seen from this North Carolina team since Coach Davis has taken over, where there's a heavy reliance on the top guys. They're playing almost every minute. How much of that can you how does that impact the college player when you are playing, 36, 37 minutes every night?
It weighs down on you. I mean, you have to play on both sides of the ball. And if you're playing against teams that challenge you defensively or challenge you offensively when you're on the defensive end, it can be tiring. Those legs get heavy. The shots aren't there. And it's really tough. So being able to spare those minutes for the guys who are starting, that's very crucial. You talk about, RJ Davis being able to get some time and be on the bench with Seth coming in or Elliott coming in. Those are very important, especially when you get into the middle of the season. But like with these games coming up, man, they'll need to be able to give their all. And then knowing that you can raise your hand, which I did quite a bit, raising the hand to come out And coaches trust you enough to know when you're ready to get back in. Like Coach Williams always trusted us with, all right, you come out, you have the right as an upperclassman to be able to say, hey, coach, I'm ready to go back in. He would tell if someone was playing, he'll be like, go back and sit down, if someone was hot. But just being able to or have those guys being able to give their all and staying fresh is something that's underrated, but you want to have, especially when you get into these tough matches.
There's no shame in raising your hand when you're tired, because if you're out there giving it 50%, you're gonna get ripped for that eventually.
Right, but it's a hard balance though, because sometimes you can be tired and all you need is like 2 or 3 plays to get that second win, to get going and stay out there. But you do want to give it your all when you're out there, and I think just being able to see Coach Davis play 11, 12 guys, it might not be like that all season, but right now it's just about seeing what rotations work, seeing what guys work better in lineups with one another. But if they can play 11 or 12, we'll see what they end up doing. But I believe that they'll probably shrink it to 8 or 9.
Are you more likely to raise your hand against UC-Riverside than in Cameron against Duke?
Oh, UC-Riverside, I'm raising my hand every time. Duke, I'm not raising my hand at all. Coach, they're going to have to pull me off the floor. And I know the guys are the same way. Like, in a game like that, no, sir. Keep me in the game.
It's one of those situations where you're not even making eye contact with the coach.
Right. You walking down the court like you just looking over, making sure. Like, no, I'm not. I can't come out.
HD has said that he'll play more guys when he feels like they earn it in practice. HD, you were coached by HD. What do you think that looks like, earning it in practice?
Yeah, just his demeanor. Coach Davis is a guy. He doesn't like giving handouts. He loves guys who wants to work for what they want. And I think it's because that's what he had to do. He always talked about it. He wasn't the most talented. He wasn't the talented. He wasn't the most athletic. But what set him apart was his just work ethic. One, being at Carolina, which was his dream school and where he wanted to play. And so he knew that he had to give it his all. And I think that's kind of the coaching. That's how he coaches. That's his perspective that he coaches from, is you have to earn it. And I think last year, I think a lot of guys were just expecting to get playing time. And going into this year, Jaylen Washington said it. He said that guys are competing in practice. It's competitive. And that's how you want it to be, because when you get out on the court, that same competitiveness will come out. And so if you have guys competing in practice, knowing that, hey, this is how I'm going to get on the court, that's what it takes. And there are a lot of guys who can play, who can start. Like we just talked about, Jaylen Withers can start. Elliot Cadeau could start. Seth Trimble could start. A lot of guys could start. And I love what Coach Davis said, is setting that tone, is nothing's given here. Everything is earned. And when you earn it, you'll make sure when you get out on the court, you'll keep that spot.
From the times you've been back and the people you've talked to being around the program, what does Hubert Davis practice look like compared to a Roy Williams one?
I wish, man, I haven't gotten back much. But what I've heard is that it's very competitive. Guys are competing. You can tell guys just like playing with one another, and they really do value getting better. And I think that's the most important thing, is if like in practice, man, when you step in between those lines, it's almost like stepping in the game. And coach always told us that practices should be harder than games, because then when you get to the games, it's no surprise. And just what I've heard from people being around the program, just that the guys are competing, and that's what you want to hear, and that's what you want to see, because if they're competing in between the lines with one another in practice, once they get out there on that battlefield, man, they're competing with one another, and you're going to battle with one another. So I just like that aspect. We all know the guys are talented. I know that'll take care of itself, but competing is something that's a non-negotiable, and you have to bring that each and every day, whether it's practice or a game.
One of the things that I was really encouraged by listening to Hubert Davis on his post-game press conference from the UC Riverside was how much of an emphasis he puts on the defensive side of the ball, because there's nights where your shooting's off, but you can control the effort level and the intensity you bring to the defensive side, and being locked in on your matchup and being locked in on the scouting report that the coaches really work hard on. There was a point where in this game, Carolina really broke away from Riverside when they go on a 17-0 run. What did you see from the team on both ends of the court, and specifically on that defensive end?
They were just making every single shot tough for UC-Riverside. They were not allowing them to get into the paint. They were pressing up, getting into passing lanes, really making it difficult. And the sign of a great defense is when you get beat, what happens? Because a lot of times defenses can allow someone to get beat, or not allow, but you can get beat, and then there are no rotations. Now they're just penetrating into the lane. And I was watching the recovery of Carolina, and they were helping one another. We talk about Jaylen Withers. I know it was in the first half, but being able to come over with that athleticism and help a guy that just got beat off the dribble, that's what you want. And to your point and what Coach Davis said, you have to be able to play defense. Like, that's a non-negotiable. If there's one thing that you can control, it's controlling your effort and your energy on the defensive side. Sometimes that ball won't go in, and you can go stretches without the ball going in. But if you can continue to show up defensively, eventually, we know the game is about momentum. Eventually that ball will go in. And so just watching them come out of the halftime, which I was very impressed by, coming out of halftime, you can try to get yourself going, get those legs warmed back up. But I mean, they came out of the locker room right away, ready to get after it. UC-Riverside had no chance. And that's what you want to see from your team, because at the last 4 minutes of a half, in the first 4 minutes, those can really be the decision makers of a game. And they came out, man, and they put it on them. And that's the type of defensive energy you want to see from your team.
Before we get going, quick break to talk about our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. You can visit Johnny T-Shirt on Franklin Street or at johnnytshirt.com. They have all the Carolina apparel a fan could want. It's almost holiday season. Stock up at Johnny T-Shirt. Get somebody in your life Carolina gear. The colder weather's getting here. They have everything that you could possibly want as the basketball season gets underway. The hats, the jerseys, the T-shirts, you name it, they've got it. And they have great customer service and great people taking care of you. And don't forget, Inside Carolina Premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. The one concern I have from the UC-Riverside, it's another game where UNC shoots under 30% from three, 6 of 21 from deep. Any concerns there with the early season shooting struggles? And is that something that the fans should be kind of keeping an eye on as these games kind of ramp up?
Yeah, I think we do have to keep an eye on it, because right now Carolina is shooting 55% from two-pointer. So the 2-point range. So I think, that will honestly drop. So when that drops, what will the 3-point shot look like? And that's a question we should we should all be asking ourselves, and that's something that we should keep our eye on. But I think it will change. I think guys are still trying to get their legs up under them, and you have guys like Cormac Ryan, who hasn't, we haven't seen what he can really do. He's a guy who averaged 15 points per game last year, so we know that he can score the ball. So he's just still trying to find his way. What I love about him is he's still competing defensively. He's still bringing the energy. But I think that the 3-point shot will get going for Carolina. I know sometimes when you go on these tournaments where you're playing 3 games in a row, those things start clicking. Sometimes being away from the home crowd, being able to go in these smaller gyms, sometimes, man, that's what gets the ball rolling. And I think that's what will happen for Carolina, especially with being able to play consistently day after day. I think it'll eventually get going.
Yeah, somebody like Cormac Ryan last year at Notre Dame, he shoots 40% from the field, 34% from three, and it's not like he has a small volume there at Notre Dame. He was one of their best players last year, so
All right.
you figure those numbers are gonna eventually average out and raise back to the norm. But if you are this Carolina team, you mentioned the mindset where it's easy to get locked in when you're going on the road to Cameron. You have to, find the energy to get up for these games against UC-Riverside. How do you mentally prepare from going up against these smaller teams to these ranked teams in these early season college basketball tournaments?
Yeah, I think you just have to realize the sense of urgency to raise up your level, and that's what they have to do in these tournaments. There's no more hand me out games. I love the beginning of the season games, just to get guys going, to be able to get the rust off. Be able to see your team compete against someone else. But it can kind of almost be a hindrance because you go from playing a UC Riverside to playing some really good competition, high level competition. So I just think you have to realize the sense of urgency, and you have to step up your play. As they tell high schoolers, you don't know what playing hard is until you get in college and realize like playing hard is on a different level. So I think in these tournaments, in this tournament that's coming up, they got Northern Iowa, which they got to come out and compete and get ready for the next game. But I just think the sense of urgency has to be there, and I expect them to raise it up, and they have the team to do it. But it's kind of tough when you're going from UC Riverside to playing some high level competition. But that's what they're there for, and I know they'll raise their level up.
Yeah, you look at some of the teams they could play after Northern Iowa. It's Villanova, Texas Tech, and then after that, Arkansas, Memphis, Stanford, or a really good Michigan team that I've been impressed with. I keep an eye on Michigan because when I was coaching basketball out of the DMV, we had Doug McDaniel, their point guard, and he was always a guy that I love watching him. He's if I could get a dream matchup in this Bahama final, it would be North Carolina, Michigan, just because I think it's a classic matchup too with the two Jordan schools.
Yeah.
The finals rematch from the early '90s where Chris Webber calls the timeout that he didn't have. Before we wrap up, a big shout out to our friends at Congruity. Congruity is a North Carolina based national coverage, local presence company with personal support straight from the Tar Heel State. Congruity is empowering small and mid sized business owners with HR and payroll outsourcing, enabling you to grow your business while they take care of your greatest assets, your people. And they are doing it with top of the line technology and services for every stage of your business's growth with a state-of-the-art online platform. Congruity, they are obsessed with customer service where they become part of your team. They do the heavy lifting, providing essential admin support with a single point of contact and support available on demand with services that are tailor-made for you, transforming your organization. Congruity has helped hundreds of businesses improve and enhance their day-to-day lives, level up your HR capabilities, save money, unlock game-changing growth. Visit congruityhr.com/Tar Heels to learn all about Congruity. Fill out a quick form to be connected to their consultants, and they'll give Inside Carolina listeners or viewers a payroll and HR assessment for free. That's congruityhr.com/Tar Heels, congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. All right, back to the episode. What are these trips like for the players where you're going to fun places, but you also have to remember like why you're there in the first place and trying to find the balance between fun and business?
Yeah, these tournaments are awesome. I think it really brings your team close together. I think about my time at when we went to Maui, and you do all the events leading up to it. We had cornhole, we had all these we had a dance competition, like all these little things that go under the radar, that brings your team together. That's what these tournaments present, and you're there day after day after day with your team, and you're able to lock in and you're able to focus on basketball. Like, you have all the other things going on, but at the end of the day, to your point, you're there to do a job and you're there to get the job done. And I know Carolina is going to this tournament, and it's championship mindset. And you got to, but you have to have that balance. Like, you have to continue to be who you are as a team. If you're a guy that is always upbeat, and that's your personality, don't change that, because you have to be yourself in these type of tournaments, and to bring the team together. So I think it's awesome, man, especially when you think about it being Thanksgiving, man. This is a time where you usually spend with your family, but you are with your family. The guys that you are going out there competing with, their family, the coaches, their family. You have all the coaches' families. Some of the guys' families will probably be out there. This is a time, man, where you go and you just get to play basketball. You don't have to worry about class or anything. And this is, like, honestly the best time. So I'm super excited for those guys. And it's like an AAU tournament. You just go and you play and you play and you play.
Feels like we are going to learn a lot about this team over the next week from the Bahamas. But Carolina back in action Wednesday, noon tip on ESPN Northern Iowa. Joel, man, appreciate the time as always, and appreciate everybody watching and listening.